This is RBN, the Republic Broadcasting Network.
What Really Happened with your host, Mike Rivero. The history the government hopes you never learn. Here is your host, Michael Rivero.
Aloha, America. Welcome to our show. It is Wednesday, July 29th, 2020, middle of the weekday, hump day, starting that long, slow glide down to Pauhana Friday, and whatever insanity is due in store for us. We have a lot to talk about today, and as usual, I'm going to talk news until I run out of news, and at that point, we'll open up the phone lines and let you get on the air with your comments, questions, observations, and opinions here. So getting right on into it, as you're all probably aware, the big tech companies, Google, Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, have taken it upon themselves to impose censorship on the traffic going through their platforms. And there's a very liberal bias, there's an anti-conservative bias, and finally Congress has called them on it. So right now the heads of these companies are in a congressional hearing, or have been in a congressional hearing all morning, trying to justify what they're saying. And they basically come down to the same way. There's no deliberate intention to censor conservatives. It's just the way the algorithms work out. Well, somebody wrote those algorithms. And I remember there was this one member of Congress who was saying that, once he got elected to Congress, this last year, all of a sudden he's getting complaints from his constituents that in their Gmail accounts, his campaign email is going to the junk folder. And he said, why is this happening? And the executive that they were talking to at the time says, well, we're trying to give people what they want. And people in Gmail, they want email from friends and family that they know personally, and they don't want the rest of this stuff. And the guy came back and said, yeah, but this is email they signed up for, as part of our campaign. And why isn't this happening to the liberals? And the guy said, well, it's just the way the algorithms are written. Okay, who wrote the algorithms? Let's get them on that witness stand. Let's find out who it was who said, you're going to write the algorithms to do this. Because anybody with a brain and two eyes looking at what's going on knows there's an anti-conservative bias in all of these companies. There's also an anti-truther bias. I mean, right now, big tech is censoring doctors who express politically incorrect viewpoints about coronavirus. We all saw what happened with that video of these two doctors out there saying that hydroxychloroquine really does work. And all of a sudden was just vanished, double plus ungood. So they're talking about in Congress that these companies represent monopolies, and that it may be time to invoke existing law to break them up, the way Ma Bell was broken up. And I know that when Ma Bell was broken up, it caused a lot of problems temporarily. But in the long run, it did result in competition, which lowered prices and improved service. And I really do feel that the public discourse needs to have an open platform out there and not be shuttled through gatekeepers who very clearly are imposing their own personal political agendas on the content. So Apple, Amazon, Facebook, and Google CEOs reported to Capitol Hill, and Jeff Bezos, who's still smarting from his divorce, and Mark Zuckerberg will insist Amazon and Facebook are truly American companies that do face competition. One of the other things they said is America needs big monopolistic companies as much as they need small businesses. That's going to be a hard sale. Speaking of Jeff Bezos, his ex-wife Mackenzie ditches her married name, apparently is using her middle name as her last name because she didn't like her maiden name. She got $60 billion with a B in the divorce. She's already donated $1.7 billion of it to charities in the past year, with the bulk of it going to racial equity. Not sure exactly what that means. Is she paying the reparations that everybody keeps demanding for? And everybody is, as interesting as today's hearing is with big tech, it lacks the fireworks of yesterday's hearing with Attorney General William Barr. And I mean, it got just silly. It was nothing but vitriol and accusation and Nobody's discussing the facts. At one point, Barr asked for a 5-minute break to go to the restroom, and Nadler said, no, you just sit there, wet yourself or something. And Barr said, you're a real class act, which is an apt description of what was going on here. So during the hearings yesterday, there was a video that was showing the violent side of protests, because the Democrats and the corporate media are still trying to push this idea that these are peaceful demonstrations against police brutality, and that all this talk about violence out in Portland is a myth. We were talking about that yesterday, where the official talking points is the stories about violence and people getting hurt and people getting killed and places being burned and vandalized. It's all a myth that's in Washington, D.C., and it's not really happening. They're really trying to sell that one. So during Barr's hearing yesterday, they ran a video showing how violent these demonstrations really are. And the video began with clips of more than a dozen media outlets and Democratic leaders describing the wave of anti-racism demonstration as peaceful protests, followed by the widow of retired St. Louis Police Captain David Dorn speaking about the murder of her husband by a looter on June 2nd. Then they had video of rioting, looting, and arson that began to play, with the widow's speech continuing. It was a very well done video. And of course, the Democrats and the media are out there saying, oh, how could you do that? You're putting a false face on all the violence here, because we know there's no violence here, because we told you there's no violence here. How dare you gainsay us? How dare you prove that we're lying to the American people? You're not supposed to do that. That's against the rules we just made up. So this doesn't look like it's going to quiet down. And of course, this is working against the Democrats. And I know the Democrats are confident they're going to steal this election in November with the vote from home situation. But they were confident they were going to steal the election back in 2016. And they didn't. They came close. But in the end, the American people simply shouted down the cheaters. And we've got to do that again. Ignore the polls. They were doing the same thing to Trump back in 2016. Oh, Hillary's going to win. She's got 90 and plus percentage points, and Trump is just going to go nowhere. And he wound up winning the office. And Hillary whooped on her campaign manager for a while, had to be pulled off of him. So they're going to double down and try it again. And very obviously, the vector that they're going to use is the COVID-19. They're trying to keep the fear-mongering going to November so that nobody will vote in public polling places. In fact, I saw this interesting article, about things that you could do that increase your danger of being infected by COVID-19. And there on the list was, voting in a public voting poll, a polling station. And so they're already out there selling this idea. Just stay at home and fill out the vote by mail form, and we'll take care of it from there on out, which means that, they're going to cheat. The Democrats, the liberals, cannot win the election on the merits and on the arguments, because they don't have any arguments. They have violence. They got lots of violence out there. Vote for us or we'll torch your business. It's a lousy way to be running an election. And they're going to try and cheat, because that's what they did before. Anyway, getting back to our domestic politics here. Apparently, there's been a new release of declassified documents regarding the Christopher Steele dossier on Donald Trump. And apparently in these documents, it reveals that the FBI was pushing to include the Steele accusations in their report, even though they were unvetted and unconfirmed. Now, that's not normally the way these things are supposed to work. In final reports, you're supposed to have verifiable, confirmed facts. And in this case, the FBI was going with all these accusations in the Christopher Steele dossier, which we now know was just completely made up out of thin air, including the stories about the prostitutes. It was a coup d'etat attempt, failed miserably. And I don't understand why Donald Trump is just sort of kicking back with this relaxed attitude about it. Yeah, he's still the president, but if somebody tries to knock you off the throne, you have to respond, and you have to respond forcefully, or they're going to try again. I'm sure they're all sitting out there saying, well, we got away with it the first time. Let's, if at first you don't succeed, try again. Now, apparently, former Barack Obama advisor Valerie Jarrett was grilled on the Steele dossier and the FBI spying on the Trump campaign live on TV, but tried to dodge the topic altogether, earning comparisons to Hillary Clinton from conservatives. Now, remember back on Benghazi when Hillary Clinton was testifying and she said, at this point, what does it really matter? Or I think the actual quote was, what at this point doesn't matter? And so Valerie Jarrett, when confronted by a Fox Business anchor, said, "Why? I don't understand why our focus isn't on what's happening right now." In other words, forget about what was happening back in 2016 and 2017 and 2018. It doesn't matter anymore. Yeah, it does matter. It does matter when a small group of individuals within the FBI and the Department of Justice and the CIA decide they know what's better for this country than 330 million Americans. That does matter, because that's what changes this from being a republic with a democratically elected leadership into being a dictatorship or an oligarchy. And yes, all governments are oligarchies to one extent or another, but I don't want the CIA deciding who's going to be running the government. I don't want the FBI deciding who's going to be running the government. I want to decide who's going to be running the government, along with 330 other million Americans. That's the way it's supposed to be. That's what we signed up for. That's our side of the contract with America, is that we have honest, fair, verifiable elections, and we're not getting them. We're being cheated. We're being taxed without our due representation. And in the school where I first learned about such things about American history, taxation without representation was grounds for an armed revolution. Now, the other day we were talking about how Hulu is putting together a TV show about Hillary Clinton that represents an alternate history of what her life would have been like if she had not married Bill Clinton. And needless to say, it is drawing all kinds of abuse and ridicule all over social media. It's already being panned. It's not even out. And already people are saying this is ridiculous. So this follows Hulu's docuseries Hillary, which premiered earlier this year. So Hillary is trying to find some way to get herself back in the public eye. And even though it doesn't look like she's going to be the vice president under Biden, she's going to try something. I absolutely think she's going to try something. And that'll probably be at the convention next month. And I'm hoping I'm wrong. I'm hoping I'm wrong. I'm hoping somebody got to her and said, "You're too ill, you're too hated, you had 2 chances, you blew it, it's time to move on." But I'm sure Hillary's going to come on back and say, "You can't want Biden as your candidate. Trump will eat him alive." They're still trying to figure out a way that they can avoid having a direct debate. Trump's already agreed to 3 debates against Biden. And Biden has had to sort of say, yeah, I'll go along with that. But they're already talking about, well, there's the COVID-19, and we really ought to rethink about having the debates there. By the way, you remember the other day I was talking about Biden was supposedly answering random questions from reporters and, giving answers extemporaneously, but there were still teleprompters there in front of him. And apparently he did have a list of approved reporters that he was going to go to one at a time. So yeah, they were feeding him pre-planned questions to which he had pre-planned answers, or they were on the teleprompters. So, as I said before, Trump is a disappointment. If the Democrats had come up with a really good candidate like Tulsi Gabbard, I'd be voting for her. But I can't, in good conscience, vote for Joe Biden, regardless of who his VP turns out to be. The leaks are saying Kamala Harris. Now the Biden campaign is pulling back and saying maybe, maybe not, trying to build the suspense, I guess. But supposedly next week, they're going to make the big official announcement here. All right, let's talk a little bit more about this desire to be offended and to see racism everywhere. Apparently, the New York Times did a story on the city seal for New York City and claiming that one of the artifacts shown in the seal represents a noose. It's a noose. They're racists. It's a noose. They were going to hang somebody. Oh, how racist could you be? Well, it turns out, and this is, by the way, on the city's website, where they show the seal and explain what the symbology is. It's not a noose. It's a plumb bob that was used to basically measure the level of water in the wells. It's not a noose. It doesn't even really look like a noose, but oh my goodness, I see a noose. I can make a big deal about it. They're over at the New York Times. So they've been taken to the woodshed, and they should. So there's this desire to see racism where it doesn't really exist. Okay, getting on back to the protests and everything. It's what, 2 months now out in Portland, of peaceful protests that have resulted in deaths and injury and vandalism and buildings being burned. But it's peaceful. Trust us, it's peaceful. The only people who think that those protests are violent, are dangerous right-wing fanatics who want their law and order. So Ted Cruz is out there saying Democrats are letting their cities burn. That's true. Time they paid the price. And as the summer of 2020 spirals into more street violence by rioters posing as protesters against police violence, there's the irony. The police are violent, therefore we're going to be violent. Anyway, the Republican senators pushing one way to hold Democratic officers responsible for allowing the continuing chaos. And that's exactly what's happening. And there's something that you might want to have as a personal talking point as you talk about the upcoming election, not just the president, but members of Congress, members of the Senate, and just say, look at what the Democratic leadership allowed to happen in these cities for political gain. Do you want that happening to the nation as a whole? Because that's exactly what will happen. Look what happened when Hillary lost in 2016. They rioted everywhere. And it was always the liberal Democrats who were causing the damage. The conservatives don't get out there and kick over trash cans and set things on fire. It's always the liberal Democrats because they're following, what their leaders are saying it's permissible to do. Now, speaking of Democrats and terrorism, apparently Antifa and Black Lives Matter protesters, they've been using fireworks, including some of those mortars, which can cause concussions and stuff. Apparently, they're now packing their fireworks bombs with nails to make them more lethal, more damaging. And apparently, Black Lives Matter protesters attacked the Atlanta field office of U.S. Immigration and Customs Enforcement with nails embedded in fireworks bombs. That is really serious stuff. That's assault with a deadly weapon, in my opinion. It's certainly assault, whether the weapon is considered deadly or not. So why aren't these people being arrested? Why are they not being given their stainless steel cufflinks and marched off to jail? That's what I want to know. So far up in New York City, the New York City Police Department said 303 law enforcement vehicles have been damaged since George Floyd's death on May 25th, resulting in nearly $1 million in damage. At this point, George Floyd's death is almost an afterthought. It almost doesn't really matter anymore. This thing has just taken on a life of its own. And it's a very dangerous, dark life here. All right, so let's talk about Joe Biden and gently make fun of him here. Apparently, Biden held a campaign event in Wilmington, Delaware again, came out of his basement, saw his shadow, which means we're going to get 6 more weeks of idiocy, and welcomed people who came to his campaign event to the wrong community center. Then he tried to recover from it, saying that he was just joking. At one point, he said, let me get my list here, which was a tacit admission that there was an approved list of reporters from which he was to take all questions. All stage managed. All stage managed. Okay, Biden's speech notes remind him he holds no grudges against the talented California senator as Politico publishes technical error declaring she is his choice. So the leak is definitely out there, and, Biden could do worse. Like I said, I'm just anybody but Hillary. Anybody but Hillary. And I still wouldn't count her out of this race, even if Biden does pick Kamala Harris. Okay, we got to take a break for commercials. We're going to pause here, and we'll be back with more news after these few words.
Tired of being lied to by mass media? It's growing more and more apparent today that news is received less and less through standard media outlets. Even with a growing audience every day, RBN is beginning to direct more efforts into social media. Social media and the use of the internet is fast becoming the primary source of people for news, regardless of demographic. RBN has set out to provide some of the best news on the internet through republicbroadcasting.org, and also has begun to use the tools to our advantage by way of social media. Republic Broadcasting is now operating a Facebook page to function as yet another avenue to have our collective voice reach new audiences across not only America, but across the globe as well. The Facebook page features not only news, but also an RBN player to listen to our broadcasts. Get involved by visiting facebook.com/Republic Broadcasting and liking our page and share it with your friends and family, because you can handle the truth.
Folks, we're living in a world the likes of which we've never perceived any clearer than we do now. The plan for global governance has been in the works for generations and would have likely been achieved by now, but for the fact that the globalists left open their Achilles heel. With all their tools, Federal Reserve System, fiat currency, no child left behind, and then Common Core education introduced to our schools to dumb us down, vaccines, pharmaceuticals to lobotomize us, GMO foods, insertion of compromised or bought and paid for politicians, judges, mainstream media propaganda, all pieced together like a puzzle designed to ultimately bring the world under submission. But with all their strategy, they forgot one thing: knowledge. And knowledge is power. With knowledge, their bombardment is nullified. Folks, with that, as brilliant and knowledgeable as you've become, among the wisest audience of any radio audience in the world, and you are, I want you to take a moment to reflect and ask yourself, how much of that knowledge did I obtain from Republic Broadcasting Network? How high has my consciousness been raised since I've been a listener? How fast am I now able to discriminate truth from fake news by being a Republic Broadcasting listener? How clear am I now able to see the world since I've been listening to RBN? Ask yourselves those questions, folks. Then ask yourself, what is that knowledge worth to me? Like my morning coffee, how would I survive without it? A voice of truth in a sea of lies. Do we not all need to make sure it survives? Like public broadcasting, we are now finding we can only survive with listener support. Censorship, advertisers being attacked, truth itself being attacked. It's the only way through this. We at Republic Broadcasting humbly ask you to become a supporter. Look at your budget and make a determination of what Republic Broadcasting is worth to you and what you can afford on a monthly basis. Go to republicbroadcasting.org and pledge 20, 30, 40, 50, if possible, 100 a month or more if it's affordable. Click the donate button and become a regular monthly donor. Assure both us and yourself that Republic Broadcasting truth will continue to flow like that morning coffee. The network thanks you.
What this country is coming to, I sure would like to know. If they don't do something by and by, the rich will live and the poor will die. Doggone, the panic is on. Can't get no way, can't draw no pay.
Welcome back to our show here, and a reminder that Republic Broadcasting and WhatReallyHappened.com are in the middle of perpetual fundraising campaigns. And the reason is very simple. The equipment breaks down, it wears out. I'm in the middle of overhauling this studio out here in Santa Claus. RBN is in need of a 5-second delay due to some misbehavior by some of our callers. And we need your help to do it. Jeff Bezos' ex isn't going to be donating any of her billions to us, but we rely on advertising and we rely on you to keep us on the air doing what we're doing. So the postal address where you can send a check, money order, or if you prefer anonymity, cash, is Republic Broadcasting Network, 2251 Double Creek Drive, number 302, Round Rock, Texas, 78664. The phone number where you can make a credit or debit card donation is 800-724-2719, extension 3. The network thanks you. And seriously, those of you who've donated, who are keeping us on the air, we heartfelt thanks, very much so. Okay, let's talk about the next coronavirus aid bill, if you will, the coronavirus package. It's another $1 trillion. And it's being argued over in Congress. And a lot of people are saying this one's dead on arrival. Because first of all, they're taking the $600 unemployment benefit and lowering it back to $200. Mnuchin is out there saying we're not going to use taxpayer money to pay people more to stay at home, which is a factor. In a country where everybody's working for minimum wage, it doesn't take much more than that to convince people not to bother trying to find a job here. Anyway, there's going to be another round of $1,200 checks to be sent out in August if this package passes, but it's facing an uphill battle. For one thing, there's some $20 billion in this new package set aside for the Pentagon for weapons acquisition, of which $7 billion is set aside for the purchase of additional F-35 fighter jets. And what does that have to do with the hardship of the American people resulting from the coronavirus? Then on the liberal side, you have money that's going to go to Harvard, money that's going to go to the Kennedy Center. And if you look at this money that's going on out there, I heard this commercial that made a very valid point. And that was that just the money going to the Kennedy Center, which Nancy Pelosi's all in favor of, if Nancy Pelosi were to take that same money back to her constituents, she could feed and house all of the city's homeless population for that much money. So there's an illustration of where her priorities lie. Okay, story coming on out of BBC. The millions hanging by a thread as the coronavirus aid expires. And it is expiring, not just here in the United States, but all over the world. The eviction moratorium expired last Friday. There's talk of it being extended. So far, that hasn't happened yet. So let's see. A lot of people out there just barely getting by. Okay, COVID-19 relief bill sets aside $7 billion on weapons, including F-35 jets. Sanders calls it dead on arrival. Okay, Schumer is out there fuming over what he calls the GOP HEALS Act, and he demands an avalanche of stimulus, meaning more money, to avoid a piecemeal solution. After Mitch McConnell confirmed earlier reports on Monday that the GOP bill would drop the $600 per week bonus unemployment stimulus to $200 and includes another $1,200 in direct payments to American adults, Senate Minority Leader Chuck Schumer took to the Senate floor and stomped on his crayons, calling the Republican proposal unworkable. So once again, they're playing politics with the lives of the American people. They don't really care about you. It's just about scoring points against the other side here. So let's talk a little bit more about the economy in general. Bitcoin surges over $10,000, could surpass $15,000, digital currency experts say. Bitcoin prices were taking flight Monday, pushing the digital currency to the highest level in about 2 months and ending the long dormancy of the world's #1 virtual asset. Bitcoin, the largest and most influential cryptocurrency, shot past the key 10,000 resistance marker. All eyes are now on the critical 10,500 level. Bitcoin's BTC USD 2.89% recent rally to 10,237 took it to around its highest level since June 1st based on spot prices. There we go. All righty. Article coming on out of Global Research in Canada. It's futile. We're feudal with a D. The super rich own the two-party, one-party system, social inequality in America. As of a year ago, Walmart's CEO pay was 1,076 times that of their average worker worldwide. These workers average $21,952 a year with little or no major benefits, sometimes none at all. The Nike CEO receives 379 times the pay of his median employees at $29,000 a year, actually just under $30,000. Not even the lowest worker. Those Air Jordan or LeBron sneakers equals 3 to 4 days pay for the aforementioned U.S. workers. Okay, we got to take a break for commercial. We'll be back after these few words.
You are tuned in to the Republic Broadcasting Network. Visit our website by going to republicbroadcasting.org.
Homeowners, if your lender has gone out of business or sold your transaction to another lender or servicer, you may be the victim of a wrongful foreclosure, resulting in the loss of your home. If you've already lost your home, are in foreclosure, or even in good standing, you can challenge the mortgage transaction's illegal issue, and your property can be restored to you, and your foreclosure can be stopped or reversed, and the mortgage transaction declared unenforceable. State laws, U.S. title codes, the Uniform Commercial Codes, and U.S. Supreme Court rulings have upheld that defective mortgage documentations can reverse or stop foreclosures and enforce property title claims in favor of the homeowner. We are having successes in stopping the process of foreclosure, the enforcement of the foreclosure judgments, the sale of property, and evictions after the sale. We are not attorneys, and we don't give legal advice. We are a professional team of legal researchers, providing forensic mortgage audits and expert witnesses. We have the knowledge to produce the evidence and enforce laws regarding your legal issues. We've been in business for 12 years without a complaint. Consultations are free, and we provide a free title search to confirm if your mortgage has legal defects. Please call 855-253-3748. 855, the number 2, keep it today.
Corporate media dominates the American opinion. Finding independent voices that counter this avalanche is becoming increasingly difficult. With the endless corruption running rampant throughout our government, independent voices are needed more than ever to battle the offensive against our freedoms and liberties. As a listener of RBN, no one understands this concept better than you. Now it's up to you to do your part. The time has come for you to take action and begin broadcasting the truth to hundreds or thousands of people every month. Sound impossible? Quite the contrary. With pointed slogans from LibertyStickers.com, you can reach countless sleeping Americans unaware that they live in a real-life wonderland. LibertyStickers.com has a huge inventory of political bumper stickers and messages that reflect the truth about our government, our politicians, and the future of America. With so many in stock, there's one perfect for you. Visit us today at LibertyStickers.com. Again, that's LibertyStickers.com. Do your part. Your voice is important. Let it be heard.
So, you love talk radio? Then you'll love TalkStreamLive.com. TalkStream Live is always on, 24/7, with the best streaming talk shows. Find your favorite talkers and discover some new ones. It's free, readily available online or on mobile with any smartphone or tablet. Finding your favorite talk shows all in one place has gotten a whole lot easier. Just go to TalkStreamLive.com. Be sure to download the free apps from Google Play or the iTunes App Store.
The Republic Broadcasting Network late night premiere show The Red Pill Hardcore is hosted by activists that want to hear from you, the listeners, so that you can get involved in the activism. Please call in at 800-313-9443 at 10 p.m. to enter the discussion. To book yourself as a guest, call our studio at 202-657-5715 or contact RBN staff. Remember, keep it real and take the red pill.
Some are maxed out all their credit cards. Some are working 2 jobs and living in cars. Minimum wage won't pay for a roof, won't pay for a drink. If you gotta have proof, just try it yourself, Mr. CEO. See how far 5.15 an hour will go. Take a part-time job at one of your stores. I bet you can't make it here anymore.
Welcome back to our show here, and we're talking about the economic news here. Apparently, Oprah Winfrey is closing the print edition of O Magazine after 20 years with the embattled Hearst publications. And apparently, a big part of the problem, besides really not making a lot of money with it, apparently the president of O Magazine had to resign amid sexual harassment allegations. So they're going to cease printing after its December 2020 issue, according to reports. This article implies that there'll still be an online presence here. Now, as long as Amazon is in the hot seat there before that House committee right now, there's another story. This one came out from Blacklisted News. And apparently, over the years, Amazon has invested in a lot of startups and gaining their proprietary information. And this helps Amazon to crush smaller companies by launching similar products in the market that end up competing with the ones the startups launched. This was originally reported by the Wall Street Journal's Dana Mattioli and Cara Lombardo. The journalist spoke with many founders, investors, and advisors of different startups who said Amazon met with or invested in their companies only with the sole motive of later building its own products that directly competed with the smaller company. And owing to the popularity of Amazon, the Amazon-made products often went on to crush the competition and the smaller companies. Living Social, a deals website in which Amazon took a 30% stake, says it began requesting the access of the company's data. It even hired away some of the employees and contacted Living Social's clients, offering them better deals. Okay, we talked about this a couple of days ago, about these strange packets of seeds that are coming in the mail from China, and everyone's saying, oh, it's some kind of an attack, and the packages were identified as jewelry, and there were seeds inside, and they're still saying, don't plant the seeds, we don't know what's in them. But it's beginning to look like this was some kind of a marketing gag by the company in China, where they wanted to basically sort of create the illusion of a global presence. And I'm not sure about the fine details, but it looks like it was a marketing ploy that went wrong here. So the Washington State Department of Agriculture wrote about the phenomenon on their Facebook page and said the seeds are being shipped in packaging that identifies the contents as jewelry. So is it agricultural warfare? Well, at this point, no, they don't think so, but they're saying don't plant the seeds anyway, because we can't tell with those Chinese people. Heaven alone knows what they're up to now. Speaking of China, we keep seeing all these articles, and this is very, very worrying. This is from Bruce Wiles' blogspot.com. China's massive Three Gorges Dam on the edge of failure. Apparently, the water level is already something like 6 meters above what is considered the break point. And more water is pouring in from Tibet. And the dam is in peril. It's one of the world's largest. It's 1.5 miles long, 600 feet tall. About 400 million people live downstream of the dam, and apparently no plans have been made for their evacuation. If that dam lets go, the flood surge is going to go right through Wuhan, and it'll go all the way out to Shanghai. And I hope it doesn't happen, because the economic devastation, along with the real world devastation, will be bad for China and ultimately the world itself, because of our interlinked economies. Turning to the international news now, pressure for sanctions against Turkey increases as tensions with Greece grow. Divided on how to deal with Turkey, some European leaders are calling for sanctions and others are calling for a reset in Euro-Turkish relations. French President Macron and the German chairman of the parliamentary group of the European People's Party, Manfred Weber, have been in a hurry in recent days to push for sanctions against Turkey because of its provocations against Greece and Cyprus. Now, a Turkish magazine is calling for a revival of the caliphate, return of the caliphs, if you will here. The Turkish Bar Association has filed a criminal complaint against pro-Islam magazine Gerçek Hayat for instigating hatred and called for an armed rebellion against the Turkish government. So, anyway. Okay, there's a video out there, and it shows Iran practicing for an attack on a U.S. aircraft carrier. And they actually built a mock-up of a Nimitz-style carrier. It's not full scale, of course, but they went on out and they shot it with missiles, and they did helicopter assault onto the flight deck, speedboats around it and everything. And I don't know how realistic that is, because most aircraft carriers have their fleet auxiliaries around them, and this did not. But it certainly looks impressive on video, and maybe that was the whole point of this. All right, we are seeing more tensions along the Lebanese-Israeli border. We're seeing tensions everywhere. It's just everybody wants a war. They're just waiting for a starting time. Somebody's got to get up there with the green flag and say, all right, start your engines. Whoa, we'll go. Along with Iranian military advisors and Russian air support, Hezbollah fighters are involved in aiding Syria combat U.S. aggression, including its ISIS, al-Nusra, and other jihadist proxies. Israeli airstrikes in Syria killed Hezbollah fighters before. Its leadership vowed to retaliate against Israeli aggression when any of its personnel are harmed. For days, tensions along the Lebanese-Israeli border remained heightened. Remember what Rodney King said, can't we just all get along? Now, Netanyahu is threatening Hezbollah after the group denies infiltrating the Lebanon border. And Netanyahu is saying, do not repeat this mistake. He's saying, do not test our military. Defense Minister Benny Gantz has promised a powerful response after a bout of shelling on the Israel-Lebanon border. Although witnesses from Lebanon contacted by Reuters verified the Israeli story, Hezbollah officials denied an infiltration attempt, saying in a statement that Israeli forces had taken nervous action and fired upon the Shabaa farms themselves. Now, here's a good one. Not too long, well, actually, it was a long time ago, 1994, July 18th. There was a bombing at the Argentine-Israeli Mutual Association Jewish Community Center in Buenos Aires. And it was one of the worst pre-9/11 terrorist attacks in the Western Hemisphere, killing 85 and injuring 300. Now, since then, the U.S. and Israeli governments have blamed Iran for the bloodshed, citing it as primary evidence of Tehran's role as the world's largest state sponsor of terrorism. However, apparently there is a police spy who has come forward with testimony indicating that it may have been an inside job and that Iran had nothing to do with it. Imagine my shock and surprise on that one. So, after the bombing, the U.S. and Israel placed pressure on the Argentine government to implicate Iran. At the time, however, officials in the embassy in Buenos Aires were well aware there was no evidence to support such a conclusion. It was a false flag attack. So, in 2014, the public learned that a former spy who had infiltrated the Jewish community in Buenos Aires on behalf of Argentina's federal police had revealed to two investigative journalists that he'd been ordered to turn over blueprints to the building to his federal police case officer. And he was convinced the building plans were used by the real culprits behind the bombing. So, story out of Global Research again. Is this the beginning of the U.S.-Iran hot war? Well, they certainly have wanted one for a very, very long time. Well, Israel certainly has wanted one as long as somebody else fights it for them. Americans should not blame others in vain. Iranian General Ismail Ghani has declared, this is a fire they have lit and today has engulfed them. Ghani, a veteran military commander who heads the Quds Force, the branch of Iran's Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps responsible for extraterritorial operations, was speaking about the massive fire that had overtaken a U.S. Navy vessel in San Diego, the Bonhomme Richard, which, by the way, the Navy is being sued by San Diego for the toxic fumes coming from that fire. Anyway, the provocative remarks came amid signs of a new level of covert warfare being waged against Iran. The country had been beset by its own mysterious infernos and explosions, including at parks, medical clinics, power plants, ports, factories, a missile production compound, and the nuclear facility. The latter has been attributed to Israel by a source speaking to the New York Times. Again, imagine my shock and surprise here. All right, getting on over to France and Turkey, who are making stink face at each other. A confrontation between the two NATO states, France and Turkey, continues to trouble the Mediterranean region. Egyptian forces are mobilizing, and many other military players are continuing operations there. In March of 2011, during a hectic weekend, the French delegation to the UN Security Council managed to convince all other member states of the Council to support Resolution 1973. It was all about the humanitarian corridor for Benghazi, which was considered the good opposition by the government of Nicolas Sarkozy. One of his whisperers was the controversial philosopher Bernard-Henri Lévy, who supported a French intervention. Lévy, fond of the humanitarian war, found a congenial partner in Sarkozy. Okay, China's getting ready to build a new assault carrier, and it's called the Type 076 Landing Helicopter Dock. It's a variant of that type of warship that combines a helicopter carrier, a catapult aircraft launching system, and a docking area for amphibious landing craft. If they can pull it off, it's going to be a formidable platform. And apparently they're going to have an electromagnetic catapult for the launching of drones. So that's an ambitious, ambitious plan. See if they can pull that off. Okay, this is a very troubling article. This is from Zero Hedge. A U.S.-China military conflict deemed highly likely to almost certain over the next 3 years. I saw another article along the similar vein saying 1 year. But let's go with 3 years for right now. A top independent Australia-based think tank, which regularly advises the Canberra government, has produced a risk assessment studying the likelihood of America and China going to war. involving defense experts around the world. The study was undertaken on the heels of the U.S. sending 2 carrier strike groups to sail through the South China Sea in a provocative freedom of navigation operation. Given that normalization with China, a longtime foreign policy emphasis which goes back to Nixon and Carter, appears to have gone out the window during the latter half of the Trump administration, there's lately been much forecasting on the potential for the U.S. and China to stumble into war. I'd like to point out at this point, both parties are nuclear armed. So we ended World War II with nuclear weapons. World War III maybe started with nuclear weapons. So it's just crazy. It's just absolutely crazy. All right, we got some other random stories here. Apparently, an outbreak of salmonella across 23 U.S. states has sickened hundreds of people, resulting in an investigation by the CDC. Oregon has so far reported the most cases of salmonella, 51, with a total of 212 people infected across the states as of July 23rd. The outbreak is rapidly growing in size. A specific food item, grocery store, or restaurant chain has not been identified as the source of infections yet. So stay tuned for more information about that. Okay. So here's another article. This one is from the Daily Mail in Great Britain. Magic mushrooms should be made legal in the same way as cannabis so they can be used to treat depression, according to leading doctors. Leading experts have called for a change in the law to allow shrooms to be used in a similar way as medicinal cannabis. But they said recreational use would remain illegal, with Brits caught in possession of the Class A drug facing a jail term of up to 7 years. Scientific studies have repeatedly shown psilocybin, the psychoactive chemical in magic mushrooms, has promised in boosting mental health, fighting off depression, and helping PTSD sufferers. That's one of the things that our war on drugs tends to blind us all to. Some of these substances do have legitimate medical purposes. I remember back when ecstasy was first available, MDMA, and it hadn't been made illegal yet, and therapists were using it because their patients could look at themselves in their own lives without any fear or recrimination, and it accelerated the therapy process. But of course, the government said, "Oh, they're having too much fun. We've got to make this illegal here." All righty, let's see. This happened yesterday. We had a bunch of asteroids pass by us. We're still here. One of them came in about 1/10 the distance from the Earth to the Moon. But as I said, we're still here. Not the end of the world. All righty. There's this Playboy Russian hacker who has broken into Garmin, infected them with ransomware. This guy is 33 years old. He runs an organization called Evil Corporation. He has a $5 million FBI bounty on his head, and he should be easy to spot because he drives a Lamborghini. But apparently he's crippled Garmin with millions of users for the 5th day, and he wants $10 million to restore it. So tens of millions of people around the world have found their Garmin devices, including those used by runners, cyclists, and pilots, down for a 5th day. Now, obviously, this hacker is a bad guy, but it underscores one of the weaknesses of having everything go through the internet to a central server, and that is that it can be interrupted. I'll give you a good example. On the iPhone, there is a very nice mapping system, and it works really well to get you from point A to point B as long as you're within range of a cell tower. But if you're way out in the boonies or the cell tower system goes down, the mapping tool stops working properly, as opposed to GPS mapping tools that are totally self-contained in the device, such as, well, there used to be one called Navigon. They got bought by Garmin. But that one, the maps were all internal, and you could keep on going even if you were out of touch with the cell tower system. I mean, you had to manually update your maps and everything. But I'd rather have standalone systems and everything networked together for this very reason. If everything's networked together, then anybody who can crack that network, they have tremendous amounts of power. They really do. Okay, remember Dr. Anthony Fauci? He did the first pitch at a baseball game, and apparently he just threw the ball wildly out of line here. They actually made a baseball card of him, and apparently it has topped records for sales in just 24 hours. Everybody wants one of these. And the Topps Now limited edition baseball trading card featuring Dr. Fauci, director of the National Institute of Allergy and Infectious Diseases, set an all-time print record run for the franchise, 51,512 cards. I guess they'll probably do a bit more, but Fauci's pitch was well off the mark and hurtled short and to the left of the home plate circle. Should have practiced a little bit more. Okay, this is really kind of cool, but we're going to take a commercial break here. And when we come back, I'm going to talk about this next Mars mission. We'll be back after these words from our sponsors.
What would you say if I told you we have a new tool that will increase production and lower maintenance costs for your meat processing company? And it would pay for itself in just 6 weeks.
When pigs fly!
The new EaseOff Model EZ4 replaces old spring-style carcass droppers and is faster, safer, and more reliable. The EaseOff lowers or lifts 1,000 pounds to or from your rail automatically using our remote control.
Sounds expensive. Can I afford it?
Can you afford not to try the EaseOff? It installs fast with just 3 bolts in place of your current dropper. The effortless operation will reduce fatigue and injuries, speed up your line, eliminate downtime, and increase profit.
How can I order my EaseOff?
Go to easeoff.com, EAZEOFF.com, and hurry because we are offering $200 off on the new EZ4 for a limited time. Easeoff.com. We make pigs fly. Cows too. EaseOff LLC, Summersville, Missouri, 417-932-6419.
Did you know that you can be tracked and traced when you're online? With identity theft and cybercrimes on the rise, your passwords, your identity, and even your physical location can be revealed to complete strangers. Would you like to surf the internet anonymously and not have to worry about these threats? Well, now you can by visiting patriotinternet.com. For about $2 per month, patriotinternet.com will conceal your IP address and your physical location, allowing you to browse the web, send emails, and instant message anonymously. patriotinternet.com will bypass filters, block sites, and keyword blocking. You can also bypass logging by your router and your ISP. With patriotinternet.com, there is no software to install and uses 128-bit encryption for your protection. When using wireless hotspots, patriotinternet.com shields your information from identity thieves and is compatible with Windows, Mac, and Linux. Protect your identity and your freedom with anonymous internet access from patriotinternet.com. Visit patriotinternet.com today.
Extend your life with Extendovite, a 7-herb combination made from garlic, cayenne, bilberry, hawthorn, ginkgo biloba, valerian, and milk thistle. Each herb was chosen for their abilities to help improve irregular heartbeats, chest pain, lower cholesterol, as well as normalize blood pressure and clean and strengthen arteries, plus much, much more. Doctors have taken people off of some or all of their pills just because they believe their patients got better while taking Extendovite. Get the dependability of Extendovite. Just see how you feel in 6 months. A 2-month supply of either capsules or liquid is only $69.95 plus shipping and handling. Call 1-877-928-8822. That's 1-877-928-8822 or visit heartdrop.com.
Extend your life with Extendovite. We will not go down in the night without a fight. You can burn up our mosques and our homes and our schools, but our spirit will never die. We will not go down in Gaza tonight.
Welcome back to our show here. We're going to go ahead and open up the phone lines now. But before we take any phone calls, I want to get to this story because this is kind of cool. And you all know I'm ex-NASA, and I have a special affinity for the planet Mars. And NASA's getting ready to launch the Perseverance rover to Mars. In fact, I think the launch is tomorrow, if I remember correctly. And one of the cool things is they're taking a helicopter along to Mars. Now, it's a little tiny helicopter, and it's really a proof of concept demonstrator because it's robotic, and it has to be because, you know, under the best of conditions, it's 20 minutes between you touch a control here on Earth and you get a response on Mars. So what they're going to do is they're just going to start saying, okay, do a hop that's 6 inches forward, then try do a hop that's a couple of feet forward, and just basically prove that this is going to work. And then in future missions, they'll take along a lot larger helicopter that can go out and take more pictures, do sample return, and reach areas where the rover cannot. So this is really very, very cool, and I wish them a lot of luck. So anyway, the helicopter weighs 4 pounds. It's called Ingenuity, and apparently a few months after touchdown, will attempt to fly solo. Once dropping onto the Martian surface, Ingenuity will start out like a baby bird, rising 10 feet into the planet's thin atmosphere and flying forward up to 6 feet. With each attempt, it will attempt to go higher and further. Okay, let's take a phone call. Al in Canada. Aloha, Al. Welcome to the show. What's on your mind?
Hi, Mike. That helicopter sounds a lot like Mission to Mars, that movie they made in 2000.
Yes.
Right?
Yep.
It really sounds like that. But the thing with the helicopter, it's very maneuverable. Right? You're basically kind of hovering in the air.
Yes.
This GPS, right?
Yes.
I don't know. You know, Mike, I'm old school. I like a compass and I like a map.
Yeah.
And I use my eyes to read, you know, the signs of where I am. And that seems to do pretty well.
Well, you know, I understand where you're coming from, and I grew up in an age where knowing how to use a sextant and a chronometer was your key to getting from point A to point B. But the convenience of having a GPS system play through the Apple Play into the car display is pretty good because you don't have to enter latitude and longitude. You can say, you know, which way to this restaurant, and it'll lay out the path on the roadway, and that's something you can't get with a compass and a map.
Right. You're absolutely correct. I agree with you 100%. Here's the thing.
Yeah.
You get these tree huggers, right?
Yes.
They've lost their mind on the CO2 thing, but yet there they are tapping away on their phones and all the other gizmos they got.
Yeah.
Right? Where the old school stuff is way greener.
Yeah.
No one ever talks about that. How simply, like a simpler life is less stressful to our environment. No one even mentions that.
Okay, Al, would you stay on the line? Al, stay on the line. We've got to take a break for station identification, and we'll be right back. Phone lines are open, 800-313-9443. Stay tuned.
Here at Republic Broadcasting Network, we have been building our online store. Well, we have been focusing on bringing you the best talk show host in the country. Here at Republic Broadcasting Network, we also want our listeners to have products they can use every day and in times of emergency. We have added new products each week to our store. Your support of this network, plus products at the best prices, is a win-win situation. Check out our new store. Go to our website, republicbroadcasting.org. and click on the online store located at the top of our website. Together, we can continue to grow RBN and help our listeners prepare for the future. Go to republicbroadcasting.org and click on our online store or call us
800-724-2719 extension 3. 800-724-2719 extension 3.
You're listening to the Republic Broadcasting Network because you can handle the truth.
What really happened with your host, Mike Rivero, because World War III is a really bad idea. Here is your host, Michael Rivero.
Mistake. Let's try that again. Welcome back to our show, hour number 2. The phone lines are open, 800-313-9443. We're talking with Al in Canada about GPS, compasses, maps, sextants, and all of those goodies needed to get from point A to point B. So, Al, if you can just pick up where you left off.
Yeah, I was just delayed. I was mentioning how just having a compass mounted right on the front of your vehicle. You have a map, and obviously you have eyes, so you know where you are. And it takes seconds to figure out on the map where you are and where you want to be. You don't need all these gizmos, and of course, doing it that way is a lot more organic, and it's less stressful to our environment. I'm not a tree hugger, but I'm just saying that's a fact. People seem to have lost reality. Like, what's really important? All this social media, all this stuff that's all convenient, and you're tied to it, you're reliant on it, or actually doing and knowing how to do it the old way. Like, I don't use a cell phone. I've stated that before, and I never will. I don't see any importance for me to have a cell phone or a smartphone, which is even worse.
Mm-hmm.
I can do anything I need to do on my own. I don't need all those gizmos. And on top of that, why would you want to carry along? Why would anybody, they're out and about doing their business. Like, why do you want to be interrupted? What's wrong with being alone?
Well, you can be alone with a smartphone. Just turn it off. Put it on airplane mode or something. But in our modern world, people want to know that they can be gotten to, communicated with if it's something important. And I remember when I was younger and we had a landline, there were some important calls I wish had gotten to us in a more timely manner regarding family members who were ill or injured.
Well, I mean, that's just the nature of the beast, right?
Yeah.
So there's another problem. Like, we've created this edge, the psychological edge in our lives where we're constantly we're being programmed to react instantly with all of this gadgetry. I'm not, but I see this because I see everybody do it. I see everybody around me. And I just cannot for the life of me understand it. What is the fascination with being, quote unquote, tied socially to everybody all at once?
Well, I don't use social media myself, but I do appreciate the technology of the GPS system, because in order to use a compass and a map, you have to pull the car over to the shoulder in order to read the map. If you read the map while you're driving, you're recording an accident. Either that or you have to have a 2-person crew on the car. Whereas, say again?
Co-pilot. Right? You have to have a co-pilot.
Yeah, exactly. And they have to,
it's a lovely lady, Claire.
Well, she's a very lovely lady, but she never really learned how to use a map.
Oh, well, maybe it's time. Anyway, I've taken up enough of yours.
Okay.
I appreciate your time, Mike. You have a good one.
All right. Thanks an awful lot. We're going to switch over to Glenn in Philadelphia. Hello, Glenn. Welcome to the show. What's on your mind?
Hi, Mike. I'm kind of to the future, talking about land navigation and GPSs and compasses and maps. And sort of chuckling. How many times have you seen in a movie where somebody people are running around and doing all moving in all different directions, and then somebody pulls out a compass as though this is going to tell him or her where he or she is.
Mm-hmm.
That's just not the way it works. I mean, unless you're, in the Scouts or the military or an orienteering club,
Yes.
or something like that, you're not going to know, how to use the compass. Like you always have to have your reference point. Like before you
Yes.
set off, first thing you do is take a compass bearing as to where you presently are, and then along the way at intervals you're constantly checking your compass to make sure you're in the direction you want to go in, and you reference points in the distance like a mountain or something like that, or a tree.
Yes.
Or that compass is that and in the military you learn how to use maps and stuff or do basically land navigation or orienteering, but this is a discipline, and it requires a type of awareness of one's location and maintaining continuity of awareness of one's direction of travel. We simply don't have. I mean, only a minute percentage of the population is trained to do this.
Yes.
The nice thing about GPS, like you're all disoriented, you've been here this way, and all of a sudden, bing, you know where you are and which way you want to go. So it's literally knowledge from above, telling you where you are, enabling you to get there. When I was young, I worked a job where I had to drive around. And I had a van for the company I worked for, and I had map books for 2 counties, and when we were dispatched to a location, you had to find it, in the maps. You go to the back, find the page for the map you want to use, go to that page, and we navigated around like that, between two different counties with map books.
Yes.
Well, nowadays, you can deliver a pizza and be, guided directly to, okay, here's your destination. It's really quite amazing, but we are very, very dependent upon it. I just that point that.
Well, just like we were dependent on compasses and map books. I remember the map book that they sold for LA County back when I lived there. And the running joke is that they were war surplus Japanese invasion plans. And it was a very good book, and it was very useful. But yeah, the new system with the GPS, yes, we're dependent on it, just as we were dependent on earlier technologies. But it is wonderfully convenient. And again, what really makes it useful is you can ask it to find the directions to a specific restaurant or store or doctor's office, something that you wouldn't get in a map book, and it'll just pop it up there.
Right. It is quite amazing. It is kind of funny. Sometimes in a city, when you're in the middle, here in Philadelphia, I was downtown one time, I'm in amongst the high rises, and I could see exactly where I wanted to go. I said, oh, I'm going to that street right there. And the nav system kept taking me in circles around City Hall. It said, go here. And it's like, wait a minute. No, yes, because of the line of sight problems with the tall buildings, sometimes the nav systems can be a bit problematic in dense environments like that. But they are quite amazing. But I think about the way I used to have to find places and navigate and stuff like that with map books, and forget about the compass. I mean, there's the idea of only people in orienteering clubs and the military basically know how to integrate the use of a compass and a map these days. Yeah, just thought I'd mention that. Thank you, Mike.
All right, well, you got it. I mean, compasses are very useful, especially on a ship out in the blue water ocean. What's really interesting? Riverboats don't have compasses. They don't need them. They just follow the river here. All right, we're going to go to James in Charlotte. Hello, James. Welcome to the show. What's on your mind?
Oh, I'm fine, Mike. How are you doing today?
Doing fine.
Gosh, I wish I'd gotten a warning about those Chinese seeds earlier. There's this beanstalk out in the back. I can't even see the top of it.
Okay.
Well, what are you going to do? Let's get serious. You right at the very start, you were talking about the that video that Jim Jordan showed yesterday during the
Yes.
hearings. That compilation where you got one reporter after another saying, peaceful protesters, how everything's so peaceful here, and the town's burning down behind them.
Yeah.
And but I checked, I watched it on C-SPAN, and the coverage was continuous. And I went back and looked at the video from CNN, and they would cut away. They didn't show any of that video on CNN. As soon as before it started, they cut back. They cut away to their regular programming, and then when it was finished, they came back to the hearings. And they did that several times. They just cut away whenever anything that didn't fit their narrative would come on.
Yep.
And so I guess that's their typical means of reporting.
Yeah, well, that's what the corporate media is designed to do, is to filter, just the way that the non-traditional media like Twitter and YouTube and Facebook, they're filtering as well. We live in a world of filters, and they're trying very, very hard to make sure that we're not seeing anything or hearing anything that goes against the agenda.
Yeah. But that really was a good video. I mean, it's a shame that a lot of people were denied seeing it.
Well, Fox News ran the whole thing, fortunately.
Yeah. Well, that's good. I'm sure it'll eventually get around to a majority of the audience, one way or another. It may take a while. But that's pretty much all I wanted to mention.
Okay.
Thanks a lot.
All right. Thanks an awful lot. We're going to switch over to Paul in New Jersey. Hello, Paul. Welcome to the show. What's on your mind?
Hello, Michael. Michael, yesterday I was listening to Tom from Florida, and I like Tom. I like his passion, and he's a very interesting caller. But listen, I want to give some constructive criticism to Tom, and that is to double check his facts before he goes off on his monologue. He said yesterday about the McDuffie riots that there were 78 deaths altogether. And then I looked it up on several sources on the internet, and they said only 18. Also on Farron Schoaf's show on RBN Saturday morning, last Saturday, he said that William Tecumseh Sherman was a Southerner, and he died penniless. Both not true. William Tecumseh Sherman was from Ohio, born in Ohio. He did spend some time in the South, but he also spent time out West. He also said about that there were 180,000 people who Union prisoners at one point or came and gone out of Andersonville. Not true. There were 45,000. So Tom, I really love you. You're a great caller, but get your facts right. And if possible, with all your callers, if you're gonna quote a fact or have a fact, if you can cite the author or the book you read it in, that's always good, because I might want to read that book too. Because sometimes a lot of your callers bring up interesting facts or stories or historical things. One other criticism I'd like to make is about Mark from North Carolina, because I find this a very trite phenomenon in the right-wing conservative camp.
Yes.
And that is the need to unite with blacks, because let's be honest. And I wish all the talk show hosts, whenever somebody says that, that a talk show host would have the presence of mind to ask them, well, what's the demographics in your town? If you're going to say, it's kind of like with, Chris Hinckley and he says the same thing, but he lives in Montana, which is not a very black state. I'm sure he doesn't have many blacks near him at all. And so I think it's always kind of hypocritical for people who don't live anywhere near blacks to say that we should unite with blacks. Also, I think it's also kind of phony when people who are staunch conservatives talk about uniting with blacks, and these are, staunch Republicans, and yet 95% of blacks voted for Barack Obama, and blacks consistently vote for the Democratic Party. So, there's such a hypocrisy of claiming, I want to unite with my political enemies. And it's really disingenuous. You don't want to unite with your political enemies. Ideally, if possible, if you can convert them to your side, that's fine. But the Republican, party has been, trying to pander to blacks, to, do all these things, trying to win over black votes. And it really hasn't manifested in any mass, tidal wave of black votes coming to the Republican Party. And by the way, and I would also like to point out to these conservative thinkers is I should remind them the reason why we have Joe Biden as the Democratic presidential candidate is because of South Carolina blacks, and they're a huge demographic in South Carolina. It's a very black state. That they basically, of course, shunned Andrew Yang and Bernie Sanders, and they were really very instrumental in changing the overall political and or at least popular support and the momentum of Bernie Sanders. They stopped that dead. And in a sense, you could argue that Biden is riding among the black community and the popularity in the black community because of his riding on Barack Obama's coattails.
Yes.
Because of, I would argue. So in a sense, and that's what I'm saying, blacks are so politically polarized from our whites. We have to be honest. We've been nice enough. We passed, affirmative action was passed under a Republican. That was under Nixon, right?
Yes.
There have been all these things to do trying to win over the blacks to the Republican Party. It hasn't manifested in anything. So please, fellas, stop the charade. They don't want to unite. They're not going to unite. And so stop pandering and putting out this, we must unite. We must unite. If we see some blacks moving over to the Republican Party, I guess then you might be able to advocate that. But so far, there's been no, movement of blacks into the Republican Party. And really, you should be focusing on alienated whites and conservatives who are concerned about, what's happening to America's demographics, the displacement of whites. You could also remember with the riots going on now, there's going to be a lot of disenfranchised former Democrats who are not happy about Black Lives Matter and what's happening in their cities. Those are the people the Republican Party should be pandering to, not trying to cozy up to the blacks. On that note, Michael, thank you for letting me indulge in a monologue and for humoring me. Thank you.
You've got it there. Thank you for the call. And we're going to go to Dustin in New Jersey. Hello, Dustin. Welcome to the show. What's on your mind?
All lives matter. All lives matter.
Racist.
Man, Mike, I don't know if you know this, if you talked about this yet. Like, those doctors, the front line, they were only basically registered 2 weeks ago. Like I was hearing that they basically was funded by what's left of the Tea Party. And you noticed they all had the same lab coats on, right? Like, you noticed that? They all had the America's frontline doctors on. Like, how come they didn't have, where they're from? Like, if they're from Johns Hopkins or another. This was I don't know. You heard about that Emmanuel woman, right? Like the one who runs a ministry in a shopping mall, a little mini mall.
Yeah.
Oh my God! You know, I'm gonna give you guys this. I'm not Mike. I didn't stay at a Holiday Inn.
Okay.
I'm gonna hang on the line. I still didn't stay on a Holiday Inn, but I will hang on.
All right. Hang on the line. We're going to take a break for commercials, and we'll be right back.
Hey, honey, I'm home. I grabbed a newspaper on the way home. Look at all the news today.
Don't you know that all you're going to get in the newspaper is propaganda, twisted news, and false information?
Honey, this is a national newspaper. It has to be true.
Ha! For some reason, the majority of the population believe anything the mainstream media tells them. The newspaper doesn't give out the important attention of what's happening to this country and news that affects our daily lives. Say, does that newspaper mention anything about the North American Union?
No, not that I can see.
I didn't think so. You need to go to www.newswithviews.com, where truth is more important than political correctness. That's www.newswithviews.com. Hey, don't throw that away. We can use that in the birdcage.
Okay, move over. Let me start reading newswithviews.com.
The truth? Read all about it at newswithviews.com. Newswithviews.com, where reality shatters illusion.
Folks, we're living in a world the likes of which we've never perceived any clearer than we do now. The plan for global governance has been in the works for generations and would have likely been achieved by now, but for the fact that the globalists left open their Achilles heel. With all their tools, Federal Reserve System, fiat currency, no child left behind, and then Common Core education introduced to our schools to dumb us down, vaccines, pharmaceuticals to lobotomize us, GMO foods, insertion of compromised or bought and paid for politicians, judges, mainstream media propaganda, all pieced together like a puzzle designed to ultimately bring the world under submission. But with all their strategy, they forgot one thing: knowledge. And knowledge is power. With knowledge, their bombardment is nullified. Folks, with that, as brilliant and knowledgeable as you've become, among the wisest audience of any radio audience in the world, and you are, I want you to take a moment to reflect and ask yourself, how much of that knowledge did I obtain from Republic Broadcasting Network? How high has my consciousness been raised since I've been a listener? How fast am I now able to discriminate truth from fake news by being a Republic Broadcasting listener? How clear am I now able to see the world since I've been listening to RBN? Ask yourselves those questions, folks. Then ask yourself, what is that knowledge worth to me? Like my morning coffee, how would I survive without it? A voice of truth in a sea of lies. Do we not all need to make sure it survives? Like public broadcasting, we are now finding we can only survive with listener support. Censorship, advertisers being attacked, truth itself being attacked. It's the only way through this. We at Republic Broadcasting humbly ask you to become a supporter. Look at your budget and make a determination of what Republic Broadcasting is worth to you and what you can afford on a monthly basis. Go to republicbroadcasting.org and pledge 20, 30, 40, 50, if possible, 100 a month or more if it's affordable. Click the donate button and become a regular monthly donor. Assure both us and yourself that Republic Broadcasting truth will continue to flow like that morning coffee. The network thanks you.
What Really Happened with your host, Mike Rivero. Visit us online at whatreallyhappened.com. Here is your host, Michael Rivero.
Welcome back to our show here. We're talking with Dustin in New Jersey. And Dustin, if you could pick up where you left off.
I did say I didn't stay at a Holiday Inn, so that doesn't make me a doctor or, epidemiologist or virologist or anything, or armchair general. But, Mike, this frontline doctors, they're putting out some non-truths about.
Give me an example.
Face masks don't work. That's a non-truth. The least face mask, which would be like the breathable mask, which you're not going to suffocate from a breathable. You don't suffocate from any mask. Okay, guys? I mean, breathable mask, there's that word, breathable. That surgical mask will probably give you a 5% protection. And then, you got your N95, N100s, which obviously are the upper category. And then you got gas masks, etc. But, I mean, that woman, the one who runs that ministry, who believes in that crazy stuff, alien DNA. You heard that, alien DNA. And
yeah.
I mean, that was beyond. I mean, that's just crazy. You know, I wouldn't. I mean, I don't know. You know, that whole thing was like, it just seemed like it was a fraud. You know, but I mean, there's truths and half truths. I mean, masks work to a certain percentage. And that's better
the
than
key
nothing.
point. That's the key point. Is the
No?
percentage gain worth the inconvenience?
That's it, Mike. And plus the 5% maybe of the social distancing, which is 10%. Is that better than zero? But Mike, I get angry because I hear about the hydroxychloroquine. They call it a cure. It's not a cure. It's a treatment. And I'll tell you why. Trump said 14 days he took that for, right? The 14-day treatment. But
Yes.
you guys do realize you got to take it basically indefinitely. Because every 24 hours you pee out 3% of hydroxychloroquine out of your body.
Yes.
Okay? Plus the zinc and the zithromycin. Okay, and Mike, I want you guys to think about that. There is a lot of like negatives to taking this. You heard about the retina damage of the eyes, right? And the the heart murmur. What was it called? The arrhythmia heart, right? I believe the diarrhea, the nauseousness. There's a lot of. I mean, we're talking long term, but you have to take it long term. You cannot stop taking hydroxychloroquine because
Okay,
it's,
now that
it's
I
not a
had not
cure.
heard. That I had not heard. We're almost to the end of this segment here. I want to put out a little bit of information for you. When this whole thing started, I bought some of those N95 masks. Now, I used to smoke. I quit recently, but I still had some tobacco around here. So I did a little experiment where I inhaled some cigar smoke, and then I put the N95 mask on, holding my breath. Then I exhaled, and the smoke went right through the front of the mask. Now, if you look at the size of the smoke particles compared to that of the virus, you'll realize those N95 masks aren't really all that effective.
Well, there's a lot of fakes, Mike, and there's also, you got heavy particles, which the cheaper masks will stop, but then you got the aerosol particles, which is the smaller, you know, the 0.2, which gas masks will stop. N95, N100s, the real ones, like by 3M, there's a lot of fake ones going on. But, Mike, these people were not really telling us the truth, okay? Because if you think about, if you just think about it, you'd have to take.
Well, I think it would be more honest for you to say
Mike,
that you
forever.
disagree with them. I think it's more honest for you to say that you disagree with them. But I don't know that what you're telling us is the truth. You know, I mean, you've adopted.
I agree with you, Mike. Yeah, don't
Okay.
don't go what I say. Do your own research. But Mike, if you look
I just
hydroxychloroquine, you would have to take that for basically for constantly. You can't stop at 14 days. You'd have to take that past what the vaccine would give you. I don't take vaccines, by the way. That's Miles asked me if I took vaccines. That was like last week. I don't get flu vaccines. You know, I take colloidal silver and all. I eat healthy and stuff.
Colloidal.
But I mean, colloidal silver. I take meso silver in the morning. Sovereign silver at night. That's nano silver is the sovereign silver. But but please, guys, don't think this is a cure. It's not a cure. It's a treatment. It's for like other things. It's not for this particular virus. It's for malaria. It's only to take for 14 days and you stop. It's not made to take indefinitely. So somebody called in yesterday say you got to take it if they wish they was over the counter. There's a reason why it's not over the counter. Partly might have to do with economics with the pharmaceutical industry, but another is long-term effects, Mike. You know, like I said, I'm not a doctor. I don't know. But if you can do a little more research on this hydroxychloroquine, but I mean, it does have a lot of issues if you take it past the 14 days. And like I said, if you take it past 14 days, you'd have to take it with a virus that's in the, if you stop taking it after 14 days, the virus is still there. It leaves your body. You'd have to take it indefinitely till you want to get a vaccine, right?
No, that doesn't necessarily follow if you've developed antibodies to it.
If you do, but after 4 months, they're saying the antibodies disappear.
Yeah,
So
well,
we
that's
don't
4
know.
months that you don't have to take hydroxychloroquine. Anyway, we got to let you go. We got to take another break for commercials. We got more callers waiting on the line, and we'll be right back.
You are tuned in to the Republic Broadcasting Network. Visit our website by going to republicbroadcasting.org.
Homeowners, are you in foreclosure, expecting to be served with a foreclosure lawsuit, or suspect your lender has coerced you into an illegal mortgage transaction? A huge number of mortgages made in the last 10 years have legal issues and are possibly defective. State laws and the U.S. Supreme Court have upheld that defective mortgage documents are grounds for foreclosure defense and for counterclaims in favor of the homeowner. If your mortgage has been sold or assigned since closing the loan, it may be defective and you may be paying the wrong party, and the lender may not have standing or the right to foreclose or collect payments under the law. If you would like to know if your mortgage is legal or not, or know if you are paying the right party, we can help. Our initial consultations are free of charge. We are not attorneys. We are legal researchers and work closely with experienced lawyers who know how to help you find the evidence to help you keep your home. Call toll free 1-855-2-KEEP-IT. That's 1-855-2-KEEP-IT today.
Did you know that you can be tracked and traced when you're online? With identity theft and cybercrimes on the rise, your passwords, your identity, and even your physical location can be revealed to complete strangers. Would you like to surf the internet anonymously and not have to worry about these threats? Well, now you can by visiting patriotinternet.com. For about $2 per month, patriotinternet.com will conceal your IP address and your physical location, allowing you to browse the web, send emails, and instant message anonymously. patriotinternet.com will bypass filters, block sites, and keyword blocking. You can also bypass logging by your router and your ISP. With patriotinternet.com, there is no software to install and uses 128-bit encryption for your protection. When using wireless hotspots, patriotinternet.com shields your information from identity thieves and is compatible with Windows, Mac, and Linux. Protect your identity and your freedom with anonymous internet access from patriotinternet.com. Visit patriotinternet.com today.
Extend your life with Extendovite.
Extendovite really works. Here are some reviews from Amazon.com. Nikki, great product. Have to try it for a few months to see results. After taking Extendovite for about 6 months, I have noticed improvement on the numbness of my hands and wrists from carpal tunnel. I will continue to buy the product. Ken Peaks, 5 out of 5 stars. Works as advertised. This formula is very powerful. Be careful to follow directions. I am feeling much better. My heart rate and blood pressure has stabilized and my lower edema has reduced. Lower leg pain due to blood clots has disappeared. Thank you. To order, call 1-877-928-8822. That's 1-877-928-8822 or visit our website at heartdrop.com.
Extend your life with Extendovite.
Welcome to What Really Happened Radio. Visit us online at whatreallyhappened.com. And now, set your eyes on the future and let's consider what really happened.
Welcome back to our show here. And before we go back to the phone lines here, message for Dustin. During the break, I went out and checked, and our N95 masks are, in fact, made by 3M. Okay, so let's go back to the phones. Bobby in Florida. Hello, Bobby. Welcome to the show. What's on your mind?
Yeah, Mike, I just wanted to make a comment about Paul, New Jersey. Yesterday, he made a comment about Joseph Stalin being a nice, not such a bad guy. Well, I think he needs to do a little research himself because he killed millions and millions of people.
Yes.
But anyway, yeah. And if you line Stalin up with Hitler and the other guys there, Churchill and Roosevelt, I think Hitler was kind of a nice guy. I got to spend the afternoon one time with some people from Ukraine in their 80s, some older people, but that's another story. Anyway, I've learned a lot about that day and Hitler and then all that other mess. I'm not a Hitler fan, by the way, but I mean, I'm just saying that lesser evil, we always play the lesser evil and not too crazy about that. But anyway, I'm here in Florida, and there's patches of places where I'm going now, and people aren't wearing their mask. Like I went into a Dollar General store, and that's pretty cool. I like it. You know, I still wear a piece of a T-shirt. I rip a T-shirt, and it works better for me. It's not as thick as a mask, and I just, you know, I get funny looks, but I don't care. I'm not going to spend what they want for one, or I have trouble losing things. But I'm doing that, and it's working out pretty good. I put it underneath my nose. I'd like to not have it at all, but like I said, I told you last week, I talked to my brother, and I asked him, how, you know, he said it was pretty bad, but it was only like 4 or 5 days it was at its worst. You know, the ache, and he said he couldn't even get up. I think I told you that. He's doing fine now, and now he seems to agree with me. We shouldn't. He was really paranoid at first. I was telling you before it all happened, he wound up getting it, but he doesn't think it was worth all this that we've gone through. You know, shutting everything down now. He actually is kind of ticked off about it. You know, but I don't know. I thought I'd put that out there, and oh yeah, and when you had Ryan on there, I was a little disappointed with Ryan Dawson when you had him on the show. It seemed like he don't have a real tough skin. Like some guy called, and he was, I guess, what you call a troll. He was saying things about Jews or whatever, and he come off real nasty. I mean, said some pretty nasty things. I'm sure you heard it, but I thought maybe he's a little more. And he doesn't agree with everybody. Like, you know, he seems to think if you don't agree with him on Epstein being alive, like he could be alive, well, then you're a kook, you're a nut, you're muddying the waters. And then he feels the same way about Sandy Hook. Well, if you think Sandy Hook was fake, then you're crazy. No, I mean, why wouldn't we think it's fake? Everything else seems to be.
Yeah.
And I really like the kid. He's very smart. He's got it all down. I mean, when he pulls that chart out and he shows you, he's got all that down really good. It's just, I guess he's a little younger, and maybe he'll mature and understand that, you know, not everybody can agree with you on everything.
True.
But don't, you know, put us in a category. We all have to get together, and we all know, you know, if it was a building that hit, whatever, or a missile that hit, we know the story's not true. So we so often want to fight each other in this arena when we should be working together. I mean, all we can do is share information right now. I mean, until the thing comes down. I even hear you say sometimes, well, I vote for Trump, the lesser evil. Me, I don't want to vote. I'm tired of the lesser evil. I'm just sick of it. I'll let you go, Mike.
If you don't vote, somebody's going to vote using your name.
With that?
I said, if you don't vote, somebody's going to vote using your name.
That's true. That's true. I'm just tired of the.
I mean,
well, you know
vote
what?
for me. Write me in as a candidate. I don't care. Or write Claire in as a candidate.
I'd love to do that. You deserve to be. Well, I'll let you go, Mike. I'll talk to you later.
All right. Thanks an awful lot here. We're going to switch over to Mark in North Carolina. Hello, Mark. What's on your mind?
Hey, Mike. What's going on? Hey, Mike. I wasn't even going to call today, but then I hear my name mentioned, and I'll
you're
tell
getting
you something.
famous.
I think there must be a separate virus flying around here in New Jersey or something affecting people's thinking. Okay, first of all, Paul said that first of all, he called me right wing. I'm not right wing. I'm a populist. I'm more left on economic issues probably than Bernie Sanders is. It's on the other side on gun rights and all around constitutional rights. That's where I'm to the right. Okay, so get that through your head, Paul. Second of all, Paul, you said about I don't know anything about being around black people. Okay, and you gave your what I consider racist statements there. Okay, first of all, Paul, I was born in New York City. Okay, born and raised in New York City. I went to a very integrated school. I've had 3 wives. My first wife was black. Okay, so you can't. And on top of that, where I live here in North Carolina, there are plenty of black people here in North Carolina. As a matter of fact, my neighbor right across the lawn from me is black. Not to mention a couple of others are from Central America and Mexico. Okay, a couple of my other neighbors. Okay, so you're talking to me like, you know, I'm kind of a guy who's never had who's never mixed with any other kind of people. Paul, get it straight, man. You don't know what you're talking about. Matter of fact, I get the feeling you're an out and out racist. I hate to use that term, racist. When I hear you talk, you sound like one. Because you know that Nigerian doc, that actually she's an American doctor now. from Nigeria. I am so happy to have immigrants like that. I don't care what color they are, as long as they believe in the United States Constitution and are proud to be American. That's all I care about. I couldn't care where they're from, what color they are, or anything else. And now going to Dustin. Dustin, do you actually believe you're supposed to take that, what do you call it, chloroquine all the time? No. It's like it's supposed to get somebody through, just like you take Tamiflu. I've never taken Tamiflu, but people take Tamiflu to lessen the symptoms on the flu. It's the same thing, okay? Of course you're not going to take it all the time. The virus does leave. Like anything else, a virus is not cured. It just exits the system finally, okay? You have to get through it, just like with the flu or with a cold. There's no cure for the common cold. It's the same thing. You're not supposed to take that stuff all the time, just like you're not supposed to take an antibiotic, all the time. Of course not. You take it for a short time. Last time I had to take an antibiotic, I had one of my molars taken out, and it was infected, so I had to take antibiotics for a few days. I didn't like doing it, but all right, I understood there was an infection there, and I took probiotics at the same time to nullify the effects, But of course, I'm not going to keep on taking antibiotics. Of course, there's deleterious effects on that. You don't want to take any of these drugs all the time. That's why I take vitamins. I don't take, look at statin drugs. Statin drugs hurt you more than help you.
Yes, they do.
The same results taking fish oil. Taking fish oil and garlic and other things like that. All right? So it's not that you take that, I can't even pronounce that name, hydroxychloroquine, whatever it's called. Okay. Yeah, it's not that you take that all the time. And by the way, I made a good video today. By the way, on my YouTube channel about what's going on at the courthouse there in Portland. By the way, Paul, most of those rioters, and that's what they are, rioters, are white, spoiled white kids, probably from the suburbs of New Jersey and places like that where you're from. Okay, that's who they are. They're not black. Very few of them are black. All right. So get that through your head. Now, I hope you answer I hope you call again tomorrow. I'm going to try to make sure I listen again tomorrow. I want to see what you got to say, Paul. I don't like you, man. I've heard you before. I do not like you at all. You got an attitude, brother. You got an attitude. You got an attitude not only against other people of races, but you got an attitude about people from other states, like this state here where I'm living in. All right? So get that through your head. Like I said, maybe we can do something about that New Jersey virus, because it definitely seems to be interfering with people's thinking. And Dustin, take the mask off, okay? It's not helping you. It's hurting you. That's all it is. You're smart with the silver and stuff like that, but take the mask off. And that's all I got to say, Mike. Thanks.
All right. Thanks a lot, Mark. We're going to switch over to Joe in New York. Welcome to the show, Joe. What's on your mind today?
Hi. Thank you very much for taking my call. I almost never call in, but I had to call in and I forgot his name. I'm sorry, that caller that you held over the break about the America's Frontier doctors.
Yes.
Frontline. Frontline. I'm sorry. Almost every single thing he said is absolutely and completely untrue. First of all, this nonsense that these doctors that became doctors 2 weeks ago, I mean, it's complete nonsense. The Dr. Simone Gold, who is the founder, is a board-certified emergency physician from California. There was Dr. Robert Hamilton, who is a world-renowned pediatrician from Santa Monica, has been for 36 years. There have been every single doctor there. I'm sorry, every single person there has been a doctor for many years. You could look on their website. I mean, it was taken down, but it was archived. They give their credentials, where they went to medical school, how many decades. I mean, the dark caller is completely nuts. I mean, what is he talking about? And like I said, a lot of them, including this Dr. Hamilton, world-renowned. They created special programs in pediatrics that are world-renowned. I mean, these are well-known doctors. They have been for decades. These are not this nonsense that he's peddling, somebody that just came off the street. these are legitimate doctors, and of course they were wearing the same coat. They were promoting the organization that
Yeah,
sponsored it.
that's what made sense to me here. You know, now in defense of Dustin here, he does have a bad habit of speaking in half sentences, where he'll start a sentence, get halfway through, then another thought jumps off and goes in a different direction. And because of that, it's possible for people to misunderstand what it is he's trying to say. Now, my impression is he was talking about it was the organization that was only recently formed, not the doctors themselves.
Of course,
Now,
it
I
was.
could be,
Well, that's
yeah.
and what's wrong with that? Of course, they were formed as a result of the government's response to
There's
COVID.
nothing
of course,
wrong with that at all.
Absolutely right. Yeah, I mean that's the whole. And also on the mask studies, there was a study published just this month in the clinical Journal of Clinical Research Cardiology out of a Scandinavian country. I mean, the doctors are from, I can't remember which one, and it's called Effects of Surgical and FFP N95 Face Masks on Cardiopulmonary Exercise Capacity.
Yes.
The title is long and it's somewhat misleading, but if you read it, and this was the first large-scale study done on masks, and it concludes, and this is a mainstream journal, this is not some kind of a fringe, has nothing to do with aliens or anything like that. A mainstream journal, and it said that prolonged use of masks, even by healthy people, has detrimental effects on cardiopulmonary, on the cardiopulmonary system, on ventilation, and on quality of life.
Mm-hmm.
And this is for healthy people. If somebody is less than healthy, it could be especially detrimental. And the CDC, if you go on the CDC website, on their page called Emerging Infectious Diseases Policy Review from May of this year, there's a study there called Non-Pharmaceutical Measures for Pandemic Influenza in Non-Healthcare Settings, Personal Protective and Environmental Measures. And so it's not talking about COVID because the study was done pre that, but it's talking about the flu. It says, sorry, I don't want to misquote, but here it is. We quote, "We did not find evidence that surgical type face masks are effective in reducing laboratory confirmed influenza transmission, either when worn by infected persons or by persons in the general community to reduce their susceptibility." So this is a CDC study that's saying at least masks don't help.
We talked about this, I think, about a week and a half ago.
Right. But that's all. I primarily, that's the reason I called. Thank you, Mike.
All right. Well, thank you. We're going to switch over to Fred in Michigan. Hello, Fred. Welcome to the show. What's on your mind?
Hey there, Mike. Martin in LA called either your broadcaster or Chris's Road Warrior Radio weeks ago. New England Journal of Medicine, 21 May this year, featured an article regarding universal masking in hospitals, and it was their conclusion that they're totally ineffective and even interruptive of sufficient alveolar oxygenation. The air exchange sac must be properly ventilated to absorb sufficient oxygen to sustain energy production throughout the body. And that's why people who wear these masks with any kind of lung deficiency will always begin to suffer effects quite quickly. And then, so Dustin needs to check in with Road Warrior Radio even Fauci 5 years ago is on record declaring the exact same, that they are totally useless. A German doctor, Leonard Coldwell, multiple degrees in South Carolina, he and his colleagues did an experiment with someone with a really bad cough, in which this person, with and without a mask, coughed into a culturing media, and the cultured microbe test proved to be only a 1% difference with and without a mask. And that's the standard deviation margin of error.
Yeah.
So, Nasser, in terms of filtering microbes, they're totally ineffective. Okay.
I'm trying to stop
1%
mosquitoes with a
difference.
chain link fence.
Yeah. And I had microbiome for a year. And guess what? We never capture isolated cultured viruses. Apparently, there's a really special process. And just like with the PCR test, guess what, Mike?
Yeah.
I bet Dustin has never heard about this. It does not distinguish between any virus. There's probably thousands of retroviruses. So it does not distinguish. They talk about a viral load. Well, yeah, a viral load comprised of what? 100,000 different retroviruses. And the body's immune function, according to Anthony Fauci in the U.S. Senate on the 12th of May this year, Chris aired that. It was a hearing with the U.S. Senate. Senator Romney queried Fauci regarding a forthcoming effective vaccine, and his immediate response, Fauci, was, well, based on our observations of this immensely powerful mammalian and human immune function in combating, eradicating, and clearing the pathogen, conceptually, we think we could have a relatively effective vaccine within 18 months. What did he just say, Mike? He said the human immune function, if it's functioning competently well, there's nothing else that's necessary. It's fully competent, fully effective. But you see, Mike, he did engage in what's called the Alice in Wonderland technique. He juxtaposed two contradictory statements. And that's part of this psychological warfare process that Chris elucidated on the 3rd of July. And it's right out of, it's called the Kubark Manual, National Defense Intelligence College. It's called Inducing Information. This is the title of the manual, Inducing Information, Interrogation, Science, and Art. And chapter 5 is the Kubark, where they get into the Alice in Wonderland. It's called The Power of Applied Confusion. Well, that's what Fauci demonstrated on the 12th of May to Senator Romney. Okay, juxtaposing two contradictory declarations. So what happens, the audience that is wholly uneducated and totally programmed to, with blind faith trust, abide by the dictates of the established communitarian. Now remember, communitarianism, Mike. This is this all-encompassing terrocratic system of psychologic and bio warfare and social economic warfare. Well, that's what he was demonstrating, the communitarian psycho warfare operation. Okay? So, by the way, Mike, I can tell you with 1100% accuracy, a retired Air Force doctor, Ward Dean, out of Nevada, in his catalog of a dozen years ago, a big article about coconut oil, coconut butter. There are biochemicals that completely eradicate all known pathogens just by eating coconut oil and coconut butter. Well, years ago, Mike, found a book called Healing Spices.
Yeah.
An MD, PhD, Agarwal. I started eating curry powder, organic curry powder, smoked paprika, my two favorites. I haven't been sick in 25 years, okay?
Well, congratulations.
Good for you. I used to get strep throat at least twice a year. Strep throat. I mean, really bad. Laryngitis. It was crazy, man. I even would get these damn cold sores, herpes simplex 1. So when I started eating the coconut oil and eating all these spices, abracadabra, nothing, man, nothing. Nothing phases me.
All right. Well, that sounds really good.
I'll let
Fred,
you go.
listen, Fred, yeah, I hate to cut you off here, but we're getting close to the end of the show, and I'm going to try and get to these other callers waiting on the line. So thank you very much. And we're going to switch over to W in Texas. Hello, W. Welcome to the show. What's on your mind?
Yes, I wanted to respond to Dustin, and he's basically discrediting the America's front line. So real quick, I think that's the biggest story of the week, honestly. It's bigger than, I mean, that's major. Those board-certified doctors saying what they were saying. You know, they were canceled off of the big social media, all their videos, a lot of videos. Even their website, brand new website got removed. The lady, just for clarification, she's from Cameroon, but she went to medical school in Nigeria. Her background is she runs 2 clinics in Houston. Her experience is as a pediatrician and emergency care. Of course, she's board certified as well. And real quick, for everyone listening, you can go to Brighteon.com. The name of the video that came out yesterday that's very powerful is called Frontline Doctors Lockdown Consequences. Go to Brighteon, EON.com. The name of the video you should check out, Frontline Doctors Lockdown Consequences. Real quick, the main part to watch that video is from 8 minutes to 55 minutes. They talk about what I talked about, I think the other day, the safety profile of HCQ is extremely safe. The second thing is that doctor from Cameroon, she said she has used prophylactically and as a treatment, HCQ, hydroxychloroquine, and she has also used it her entire life living in Africa. And right after she spoke, another doctor spoke, and what he presented is very, very pivotal. What he presented was that all the endemic malarial countries, which are in Africa, 6 countries, have a lower rate of COVID-19 than the U.S. from the beginning till now, and that relates to hydroxychloroquine being used in those countries, in those tropical countries with malaria. So I just want to say, check out that video. It breaks it down beautifully. I mean, there is no rebuttal to anything that these doctors said. It's powerful stuff. Check it out.
All right. Well, thanks an awful lot. And we're pretty much at the end of the show here, and my apologies to those callers who didn't get on the air today, but please call back tomorrow. Anyway, there's a lot of information flying back and forth here, and there's a lot of political and economic agendas at work as well. But everybody is taking advantage of the situation for whatever their agenda is. More profits, stock sales, market share, political campaigns, and we have to be very, very careful when somebody comes on and says, this is all lies and this is the truth. And we really do have to decide for ourselves. Anyway, there's the music. Time for me to get on out of here. Stay tuned for John Stadmiller. I'm sure he's got lots of interesting things to share with you. Spread the word of RBN. Spread the word of whatreallyhappened.com. We'll be back tomorrow. Aloha, America.